Today we're making a beaded bead and turning it into a necklace design. I'll show you how to create this beaded bead step by step, then we'll use it along with the rhodonite pendant and crystal seed beads to build the finished necklace. So let's take a look at the supplies so we can get started. To start off with, you're going to need a comfortable length of thread on your needle. I'm using a size 11 needle today. You can use whatever size you would like. We're going through mainly 8/0 seed beads and just a couple of 11/0s, so you can probably use a size 10 if you're more comfortable with a 10. But this is what the beaded bead will look like. And then our stringing material will go through the beaded bead like this. So that way it will sit like that. So this one, if you wanted to, you could potentially make this into an earring and just have something hang up here off to the top. If you do make this into an earring, it is a little bit heavy. I mean, it's probably going to be okay as an earring, but it is a little bit on the heavy side. So if you decide to make it as an earring, I would use a lever back ear wire for your ear wire. So that way it will stay in the ear really well. Also, it would not be good to use earrings like this in like newly pierced ears, because this is going to be a little bit heavier compared to what people would need to wear if they have just pierced their ears recently. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do a raw unit using our rhodonite rounds, our crystals, our bead caps, and then some 8/0s. So to start off, I'm going to go ahead and pick up one of the rhodonites. So that is going to be basically the left side of our raw unit. The top and the bottom is going to be a combination of an 8/0 seed bead. Pick up one of our bead caps, a crystal. This is the large crystal pink rondelles, and then another bead cap, and then another 8/0 seed bead. So that's going to be our top and bottom of our, come on focus, of our raw unit. Then the side is going to be another rhodonite, and then add another of your top bottom portion. Whoops. Come on now, stay on the bead. There we go. Alright, once you get all your beads on there, pull it down to the end of the thread so you have a comfortable amount to hold on to. Now we're going to go ahead and tie this into a knot. With this being larger beads that we're using in a raw unit, I found it much easier to go ahead and tie it into a knot. So go ahead and make your first knot right over left, left over right, and then the second one. And then just make sure you're going in between the rhodonite and the 8/0 seed bead, and then just pull it tight. And we're about to go through these beads one more time, so it's going to be just fine if you end up having it just a little bit on the loose side. We're going to go through these plenty of times to be able to tighten them up. So I'm just moving away from the beginning of this, getting over to the other rhodonite, and then this is where we're going to add our next section. So this is actually a little triangle. If you didn't notice, we're going to have 3 sections that we're going to make into a round. So add your second one, which is going to be your top and your bottom, because we're starting off at the top up here this time. So that is the top portion, whoops, and then our side. So this is our last rhodonite that we'll need. At least here, we'll probably use some in the necklace, or at least we might. I have not come up with the necklace design just yet. Figured we'd kind of do that as more of a design on the fly almost. So then there are my three other sides, the top, the new right side, and the bottom. We're going to go back through the rhodonite here, and then we're going to get ourselves set up to the other rhodonite on the other side. There we go. Make sure everything's a little tight. We're going to get ourselves on the other side to set us up to make this into a round. So we're going to go through the top and then end up coming through the rhodonite. And then just make sure everything is tight to where you don't notice any thread showing, just like that. So now we need to make this into a round. So we're going to taco this. So we're going to bring that first bead, which is now on the right hand side, and the current bead that we're coming out of, which is on the left hand side, together. We're going to put our bottom on first. So the 8/0, the bead cap, crystal bead cap, 8/0, and then we're going to go up the right hand side bead, and then do the same thing for the top. 8/0, bead cap, crystal, bead cap, and 8/0, and go down the left side. And then that is the beginning of your beaded bead complete. So I'm going to go ahead and go through the bottom and come back out basically where our starter thread is at the moment. And then that will begin our next step. So I'm sitting right where the starter thread is sitting. So go ahead and get your little beaded bead to this part and then meet me back and I'll show you the next step. Alright, so let's get moving on with this beaded bead. We've got some pretty strong storms coming in here in the next probably, I'd say maybe 15 minutes or so. So hopefully if my house loses power, then the recording will stop immediately. So if that does happen, if I have abrupt stop in the recording, then that's probably what happened, is that my house lost power, or power blinked, one or the other. So now we're coming out of that first rhodonite right where the stop thread or the starter thread is at. Choose which way you want to go. I'm just going to go left. So we're going to go through the top beads. So just that first section. So the 8/0, the crystal combination, and then come out the next 8/0. And then here we're going to add a picot in between the 8/0s. So go ahead and pick up another 8/0 and then go through the next side. Whoops, come on now. There we go. And then that puts your 8/0 sitting like a picot on the top. And then do this to all three sides. I don't know if you can hear the thunder in the video yet or not, but there's a lot of rain on the way, which in a way is a good thing because we need the rain, but it's supposed to be kind of severe storms. Here it doesn't look like we're going to have any tornadic weather, but other parts of the states have been having some really bad tornadic weather already, and it's only March. This is going to be a fun year. Alright, so now we have all three of those done on this side. We need to do the same thing on this side. So all you need to do is just go through the rhodonite that you're sitting at right here. Just make sure you skip over that, excuse me, that 8/0 seed bead that we just added. So now we're on the other side, and you just do the same thing on this side. So go ahead and add those 3 seed beads, meet me back, and I'll show you the next step. Coming out of one of the 8/0s just before the picot 8/0 that we added in this last little section. So there is one side of it and there's the other. So what I'm going to do is proceed through the picot 8/0 that we just added. And now we're going to add some beads around the side here, and then we'll connect and start doing the same thing on the other side to kind of fill in these gaps here. Alright, so we're going to pick up 2 8/0s. One of our antique bronze spacer beads, and then one of the small crystal rondelles. Now I picked out just the crystal AB out of the mix because there's like maybe 4 or 5 different colors in that mixture. I went ahead and I picked out all the crystal AB ones. I had just enough, and I think I have a few left over to be able to do these 2 beaded beads. And then the few that are left over I might put in the necklace itself too. So just in case if you want to do that. Or you can always use some of the other colors. If you don't want to use the crystal AB, or if you don't have enough of that one, then choose one of the other ones, whichever one you want to. And then we're going to do the opposite. So we're going to pick up another spacer, whichever one wants to get on the needle. That one doesn't want to, okay. And then 2 more 8/0s. So 2 8/0s, the round spacer, the crystal rondelle, round spacer, 2 8/0s. We're coming out of this bottom one, this bottom 8/0 down here. We're just going to go to the top one up here and just make a round. Just like that. And then that puts those beads off to that side. Do the same thing on this side, 2 8/0s, one of the round beads, rondelle, round bead, 2 8/0s, and then go back through the crystal rondelle, the crystal, that is not a crystal, through the seed bead down on the bottom. Goodness gracious. And then that's what it should look like so far. So now we're going to proceed on to where we can get over here. Before we do that, we need to add some more extra beads here in the center. So go back through the 2 8/0s, the round bead, and then come out the crystal. On this part, we're going to add another right angle unit. So we're going to pick up an 8/0, another crystal, and an 8/0. So this is going to be your left side, your top and your bottom are going to be the 8/0s, and then your right side is going to be the other crystal. And then just round through that crystal. And then that should span that distance in between these two, the 2 pink crystals, larger ones. Now what we're going to do is we're going to cover up some of this thread. So that's where these 11/0s come in. So just pick up an 11/0, and it helps to kind of tighten it a little bit. Pick up an 11/0, go through your 8, pick up an 11, go through the crystal, and so on and so forth all the way around. And go through the next 8. Ooh. And end up through the last crystal, or the first crystal, I guess. And then that kind of helps to kind of cover up the thread. Now we're going to get ourselves back over here to the crystal, so we can add the next portion around the rhodonite. Now you can go through the 11/0s if you want to, you can skip them, whichever one you want to. I just kind of go with whatever my thread ends up going through. But you want to make sure you're coming through just the crystal at the end. You don't want to go through that second 11/0 over there, like my needle's trying to do right now. Alright, so now you have that section done. So now we need to get ourselves connected over here. So we're just going to do another one of these. So we're starting off at the crystal portion. So now we're going to pick up one of our round beads. All we need this time is just 2 of our 8/0s. We're coming out of the bottom of the crystal over here, so we need to go through the bottom 8/0 down here. Now this side doesn't have anything whatsoever, so we need to add 2 8/0s, one of our round beads, a crystal, a round bead, 2 8/0s, go through the 8/0 at the top, and then now we need to connect that 8/0 to this one. So 2 8/0s, and all you need is the last round bead, and then go through that crystal from top to bottom. And then just give it a nice little tug, make sure everything is in there good, and you don't see a whole lot of thread going through. Come on, focus. There we go. So now we need to get back over here to this one. I'm going to add this second little portion a little bit fast because it's the same way that we just did. And then I will show you how to connect the last section, since most of it, actually no, we got 2 more of these. Okay, so how about this section is the same as what we just did over here. So go ahead and finish this little portion and go ahead and finish this portion. Then I'll come back over here in the very last section and I'll show you how to connect it together, just in case you're not familiar with how to do right angle weave. Alright, so if you're not familiar with how to finish off right angle weave, you've already got your left and your right sides already sitting here. So all we have to add is just the top and the bottom. And if you remember on this part, it's just an 8/0 seed bead. So pick up an 8/0 seed bead. You're coming out of the top over here off to the left. So we're going to go from the top to the bottom on the right. And then pull that in tight. Pick up your last 8/0. And then go from the bottom to the top of the one on the left. And give it a little tug. And then it should pretty much close up once you give it a little tug. So now we're going to cover up the thread path again. Pick up an 11, go through the next beads. Oh, try not to get your starter thread caught in all of that. There we go. And then pick up another 11, do the same thing. And so on and so forth. Now, I would suggest on this last round that we just did, this last little section, I would suggest to go through all of your right angle units one more time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this one more time, and then I'm going to weave over here. I'm going to go through all of these one more time to strengthen it. This one, and then this one, and then end over here. So the way I can think of that is that my starter thread is going to be where my last little section of reinforcement would be. And the only reason for that is that there's only really one thread path through part of this right angle unit that we did around, so the decoration that we did around. And sometimes whenever you only have one thread path through that, and if there's a lot of tension on those beads, there's a potential that either the beads will break or the thread could get worn really easily whenever there's just a lot of tension sitting there. So putting, 2 thread paths through most of your beads and everything will help keep things sitting together a little bit better, a little bit nicer. So go ahead and reinforce all the way through. I'm going to end up back here where my starter thread is. I'm just going to tie a simple knot. Then I'm going to move my thread away from that knot, and then I'm going to burn down. And then after that, you'll have a beaded bead just like this one. So then go ahead and make a second one if you want to do 2 of them, and then meet me back after that, and we will design our necklace and figure out how we're going to put it together. Alright, let's see if I can explain this before I have a power blank or lose power, because the storm is here now, so you can probably hear a bunch of thunder now in the background. Alright, so I went ahead and I did most of this just in case I do lose power, so that way you can at least kind of see what I've done, and you go from there basically. So I use crystal seed beads around my soft flex wire. That way you can still see the brown wire through it, because I'm using the copper color. Anti-copper, I think. Is that what it's called? Anti-brass, sorry. Anti-brass color. I'm using the anti-brass color, and then that way with the crystal seed beads you can kind of still see the brown through it. So if you have crystal AB seed beads and you have enough of them to be able to do this similar thing, then that would go along with the crystal AB that we did here in the beaded bead. I just have the plain crystal though, so I just stuck with that. So what I ended up doing is I strung on first the beaded bead. Then I decided, okay, I need to have something on either end of this just to kind of bring it in a little bit rather than just starting seed beads right away. So I used one of the, what are these called? Detailed round spacer beads. So I used one of those. Then I put another one of the cream 8/0s that we used in the beaded bead. And then that is the spacer bead that we used in the beaded bead also. Then I started my crystal seed beads, the crystal 8/0s. Then I did the same thing on the other side, and then just made sure on this end it was the same thing on that end also. I ended up putting a total of 18 of the crystal 8/0 seed beads in between, and then that way it kind of gives it a pretty good little hang to where everything is going to be, your focal is going to be pretty much right here, and then everything else will be just crystal seed beads. I was going to add some extra beads up in the top and everything, and some of the other beads that came in the kit, but I decided to go ahead and keep it kind of simple, and then that way everything that these 3 items are what you're actually going to be focusing on, and this is going to be the main part of the necklace. So over here I have, it's going to be somewhere, what is it, 7, 14, maybe 18 or 19 inches, and I'm going to have to measure that, and I'll have a better number somewhere in the tutorial to let you know how big the necklace is actually going to end up being. But what I ended up doing is adding 7 inches of seed beads along the one side here. Added the toggle portion to the clasp, and I'll show you how to add the other portion to it, so that way it's basically the same way, just the toggle portion instead. And then with each inch of the Miyuki seed beads, it's about 12 seed beads per inch. So if you want to change this up, and that's going to be a loud boom. That was right outside my window. That's if you want to change up the length of the necklace at all, then just adjust it by 12 seed beads, however big or small that you want to do. Alright, so I already have my 7 inches of seed beads on the other side, so that way you don't have to worry about watching me count. Now my watch is going crazy, telling me that there's lightning in the area. That would be a duh at this point in time. But it is what it is, at least it works. Alright, put the crimp tube on first, and then put your clasp on. Then you want to go back through the crimp tube with the other portion of the wire. And I'd cut off more than I probably need of extra wire. And that is only because, I'm going to have difficulties with this, aren't I? That's only because I like to have a little extra wire because of my trimmer. Sometimes it's hard for me to get through that crimp tube. And so having a little extra space there to be able to get through the crimp tube and be able to get things to work correctly, it just takes a little bit of stress. Not really stress, but you know, I don't have to worry about it not working correctly, because that bothers me after a little bit of time if I'm shaking really bad that day. Alright, so I'm circling this around to make sure that there is a little bit of space between the beads. I don't want there to be too much space because I want to make sure that these beads on either side of the beaded bead here, these spacer beads, are tight enough up against it to where it's sitting there and they don't get stuck, because sometimes they'll get stuck on either side of the bead itself. I want it to be actually in the center of the bead. So I want it tight, but I don't want it too tight to where it's too rigid and it just doesn't fit right. It doesn't sit right on the neck. Alright, so I'm going to be somewhere around in there, so I'm going to attempt to try to keep it in that one spot. And, alright, come on. So I'm pulling down on the right hand side, which should be this one, and I'm trying to get that clasp down a little bit closer. You want the loop to be, you want some room on your loop right there. You want your clasp to be able to move around and everything, so you want a little bit of room right there. But I also don't want to put too much room, and I don't want to put too much room down here at the seed beads, for that same reason, to make sure everything else down here is tight, but just not too tight. So I'm still kind of learning on how to adjust with crimp tubes, because I don't use them as often as I do with like just bead weaving projects. So I'm still learning. Alright, so I'm going to be right about in that area maybe. I'm going to push this down, I think just a little bit more, right there, and I'm going to tug this down just a little, a little bit more. Alright, nope, sounds like the doggies are getting in trouble. Alright, so now we're going to crimp this guy down. And then we're going to turn it in the crimper, or at least attempt to. Oops, it got stuck in there. Alright. I try to keep it to where the crimp stays in the crimper. And all you have to do is just lift up a little bit and turn. And then that way you have a nice little ball at the end. But sometimes it gets stuck in there. And you have to open up the crimper completely. Alright, so hopefully that's not too loose, and hopefully it's not too tight, but then there is your nice little ball crimp. There we go. So now I have a nice good couple inches or so that I can put aside in a little jar and keep that for other projects, to where if I am just using one strand of the soft flex, then I have another strand that I can actually use to give a little bit of bulk. I should have done this before I clipped off, but I'm doing a tug test, make sure that fits okay. And I think it does. And I think we're okay on the tension. Alright, so that ended up working out, I think, pretty good. Like I said, I'm still kind of learning, so hopefully the crimping made sense for those that may not understand how to crimp. And this is twisted. I'm trying to get it to where it sits right. There we go. Now it's sitting, and you still can't see the pendant. And that was another good thunder boom. So it's a good thing that I'm probably just about done with this recording. So here is your necklace from the Bargain Bead Box from February 2026. So that's the finished necklace using the beaded beads and the rhodonite pendant from the Fairytale Romance collection. I really like how the crystal sea beads keep the design light while letting the color of the wire shine through. Let me know in the comments what colors you choose for your beaded beads. And if you enjoy bead weaving projects like this, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next tutorial. It's coming out soon.